On a cold winter night in England, a man dressed head to toe in nothing but winter gear demands a room and a fire, but little do the people know that he has ulterior motives. What are they? Let's review The Invisible Man and find out. Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be reviewing H.G. Wells's The Invisible Man. So, The Invisible Man is one of the earliest science fiction books that I could find. It's not the first one. Many people believe that it would be Frankenstein that has that honor, but The Invisible Man is certainly one of the more famous science fiction books, and it was probably one of the earliest ones. But anyway, so The Invisible Man is exactly like it sounds. There's a man who's invisible, but he's not exactly a incredibly nice person, to say the least. So, in order to explain everything that goes on in this book, I guess I should tell you what the book is actually about. So, this very short novel starts with this inn run by these two characters named Mr. and Mrs. Hall, and they get quite the attention when a weird stranger wrapped head to toe in winter clothing and bandages all over his face except for his nose sticking out, and he comes in covered in snow and he demands a room and a fire. And so they give him a room and a fire, but the stranger doesn't appear to be that nice of a person. He's rather hostile to everyone, and he seems to just want to be in his room, just doing stuff, working on his science and whatever, because he's a scientist. Keep that in mind. And yeah, so obviously, since there's a weirdo taking up residence in that inn, he's obviously becoming the talk of the town, as things do. And one day, many glass bottles for science purposes show up at the inn for the stranger to do, and then that gets really suspicious. But so in the meantime, a local store in the town gets robbed, but there's no suspect found. But in the meantime, while the stranger, whose name is Griffin, by the way, while he's working on his science and stuff, he's running out of money and he can't exactly afford lodging or food. So, the people who's running the inn, they kind of threaten to kick him out and stuff. And because he's really angry, he decides to take off his face bandages. And keep in mind, everyone's expecting him to be horribly deformed or whatever. But it turns out there's just nothing there at all. He is an invisible man, as the title suggests. But anyway, so seeing someone just be invisible isn't exactly a normal sight to see, so this concerns people very much. So anyway, long story short, the police come in, but before they can arrest Griffin, he undresses and basically slips out because, no one can see him. And so he just kind of fights his way out with his invisibility and stuff, and then he's gone. But then we meet this character named Marvel. That's his last name. We meet this character named Marvel, and Griffin finds him, and he wants this Marvel guy to be his assistant. And so, after talking him into it and stuff, Marvel agrees, and so they go and get 3 books that Griffin needs, which are records of his experiments and stuff. But later on, Marvel decides to betray Griffin and tries to kill Griffin. So Griffin basically chases him into a different inn where he is shot by a bar patron. Kind of weird. So anyway, after that, Griffin makes his way over to this house owned by a person named Kemp, and Kemp was a friend back from med school because Griffin and Kemp went to med school, and Griffin basically dropped out in order to pursue science. So basically, Griffin just has this idea that maybe him and Kemp could work together for world domination and stuff using invisibility. And Kemp isn't about that. So he basically gets the police over there, and then while he's waiting for the police to arrive, he's just listening to Griffin just talk about everything. Griffin basically just explains like everything that happened up to before the book started, like how he invented the chemicals that can make people invisible. First he tested them on a cat and then himself, and then because that was suspicious, he burned down the boarding house he lived in and then escaped. But because he, is invisible and stuff, and he's not wearing any clothes to stay that way, he's not necessarily fit for survival, so he steals some clothes and then makes his way to Ipping, which is where the inn at the beginning of the book was, to work on his experiments to try and reverse his invisibility. And so basically that's where we get caught up. So anyway, the police finally come to Kemp's house, and then Griffin doesn't like that, so he basically stages like a giant thing. The police is involved. Griffin grabs an iron bar and kills someone, and then he kills like the main sheriff of the town, Aid or 80 or something like that. And then basically while 80's like officers are just like apprehending Griffin, Kemp slips out and tries to run away from Griffin, who is now trying to kill him. And the town locals come to his aid. So basically in like the final couple chapters of this book, it's just like one giant chase sequence where basically Griffin is like about to kill Kemp, but all the town locals team up and beat him up and stuff, and they beat him up really bad where he's basically dying. And so Kemp is like pushes everyone back. He's like, I gotta save this person. But it's too late. But there is something really interesting, because Griffin, who's been invisible this whole book, as he's slowly dying, his body slowly comes back into view. His invisibility is wearing off, and it's slowly coming back into view, and he's just like really beat up and stuff. Like he's like caved in and stuff. It's a gruesome sight. So the police put Griffin under a sheet, and then that's where the book basically ends. So The Invisible Man has been a really refreshing read for me as of late, because I've been reading like really long books. Like if you remember Moby Dick, that was pretty long. The Shining and Doctor Sleep, those are pretty long. So The Invisible Man is like under 200 pages, which is really good. So it is like a super fast read. I read the book in one day. Maybe you can get it in like just a few hours. The audiobook I found online was like just over 5 hours. So if you can like stick it out all the way through, I think you could really like get into it and finish it really fast. But yeah, so The Invisible Man is really short. It is really fast, and it's really interesting because the book was released in 1897. So this was one of the first times, I believe, that we've ever seen invisibility in fiction, I think. It's like invisibility wasn't really a common thing back in the 1890s, so this was like groundbreaking, I imagine. But anyway, outside of all the cool stuff with the invisibility and everything, this book does have a very important moral, which is about morality of having power and science. Because obviously Griffin, he's invisible, and I mean, if he was just invisible to be invisible, that'd be cool. But of course he has plans for like world domination and other stuff that's not quite cool, and that's a problem. So H.G. Wells basically wrote this short novel as like an allegory for the dangers of modern day science and how you can get carried away with that, greed and power, and just morality in general. So I just think that The Invisible Man, while short, is a very interesting, very layered, and very complex book that I think everyone should read, either for just leisure or maybe trying to learn something about morality. But yeah, so I really enjoy The Invisible Man. Go read it. And yeah, it's just really good, so go read it. But anyway, guys, that is the end of this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. We are still really close to 200 subscribers, so please subscribe down below if you haven't, and like the video down below if you haven't already. And before I end this video, I can actually become invisible, and I will show you right now. Whoa, I'm invisible. You see that, guys? I'm right in front of you, but I'm invisible. Spooky, right? Yeah, I know. And I'm back, so you can see me again. But yeah, anyway, so I've been Mr. BG from BG's Books, and I will see you guys in the next video. See you around.